तस्य ज्ञानाञ्जना शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकथामह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपथकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सगगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चात दशतारिणे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंकायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणम्। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायत कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरतीसे नमः। नमो ब्राह्मणे देवाय गो ब्राह्मणे हिताय च जगतीताय कृष्णाय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरंगे राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we are always eternally grateful to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada for establishing this wonderful family of ISKCON. And last week, or just the week past, that went by, we celebrated the 54th anniversary of the establishment of ISKCON. So which was fascinating. In the year 1966, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON in New York, and it's 54 years. If just imagine if we didn't have Srila Prabhupada come to the West and establish this ISKCON, none of us will be in front of the computer during these COVID times, wanting to hear about Lord Krishna, the message of Lord Krishna. And we would not know what is Bhagavad Gita, what is Srimad Bhagavatam. We won't know what is deity worship. We won't know what is yajna. So it'll be restricted to some, some ashrams, you can say, in South India or remote parts of North India. So we are all grateful to His Divine Grace for bringing this knowledge to us. So we have this opportunity to read and hear, and to internalize the message from these holy scriptures so that we can progress towards God in this lifetime. And it's also fascinating to know that Srila Prabhupada called this as Krishna consciousness, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And as we hear from Satswarup Das Goswami Maharaj and others, that initially a friend of Srila Prabhupada had suggested that it be called as International Society for God Conscious. So not Krishna conscious, to make it very general, as God conscious. But Srila Prabhupada absolutely said, no, that's not an option at all. It will be called as Krishna consciousness. And he said because the name Krishna is more personal rather than God, which is, it can be termed as impersonal. So it has to be, it is very scientific when we call it as Krishna consciousness. And it is said that Srila Prabhupada took this term Krishna consciousness from a verse, actually. So it's fascinating to know the history. So he had taken this name Krishna consciousness from a fascinating verse in our scripture. It is called as Padyavali. So the 14th verse of Padyavali, which was compiled by Rupa Goswami. And the same verse is actually repeated again in the eighth chapter of the Madhya Leela. I think it's about 78th verse. Yeah, 8.70 there. It is the same verse is actually repeated there by Ramananda Rai to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati Kriyatamiti Kutopi Labhyate Tatra Laulyam Api Molyam Mekalam Janma Kodi Sukritar Nanapiti. So this is a verse that all of us have to memorize, because this is the origin of the words Krishna consciousness, and we are all in ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Again, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati Kriyatamiti Kutopi Labhyate Tatra Laulyamapi Mulyam Ekalam Janma Koli Sukamtana Labhyate. Laulya means greed. So here it is said, pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had even if we perform pious activities over thousands and thousands of lifetimes, but it can be had only by intense greed to obtain that. If you can buy it, it is said, if you can buy it from anywhere, purchase it. So here, what it means as greed is this intense desire to serve. It's not that greed in the sense of arguing with another devotee and say, oh no, you're giving class but I want to give a class, or you're doing kirtana. That's not the meaning here. So intense greed is without any externals. It's the direct link between Krishna and us. So we want to really understand one particular pastimes of Lord Krishna intensely, so we have this intense greed. So that is what it says, pure devotional service can be had by this intense greed, not by pious activities performed in many thousands of years. So it's fascinating to know that the term Krishna consciousness and our ISKCON's name, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, is coming from this. The root of that is this particular verse, Padyavali 14, as well as from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 8.70. And the foundation of Krishna consciousness, of course, is chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it's always good to go back to the basics to know the meaning of what is this Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And Hare is the vocative form of Mother Hara, the internal energy of the Lord, the feminine aspect of Lord Hari. Hari means one who takes away. What does he take away? Our miseries and misfortune and bad luck. That's what Hari takes away. So Hare is the vocative form of Hara. So in a way, the internal energy of the Lord is not different from Lord Krishna. So it is definitely the name of Lord Krishna as well. Hare, which is Srimati Radharani. And then Krishna is all attractive, and Rama is reservoir of all pleasure. And Srila Prabhupada explains that when we say Rama, it can include all three Ramas, Lord Ramachandra, Parshuram, as well as Balaram. So we are asking for service. Please engage me in your service. And it's so powerful and so potent that there are 16 names in one Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And when we chant one round, the devotees were wonderfully chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra when I joined. So when we chant one round of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we are chanting 1,728 names of Lord Krishna. So in a way, which mantra will help us chant holy names, like 1,728 names of the Lord in less than 10 minutes. Right? So because it's 16 names multiplied by 108 beats that we have. And for initiated devotees, 16 rounds, that means 16 multiplied by 108 multiplied by 16 rounds, that comes to 27,648 names of the Lord in less than 1.5 hours. So we have this great formula that is given to us, and it is up to us to chant this mantra with intense greed, as well as this verse teaches us, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati. So, we were grateful to ISKCON founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami for that. So today's topic that we have chosen is, don't judge the book by its cover. Because in general, the human nature is we judge by the externals very quickly. And you would have heard this term, a pretty face does not mean a pretty heart. And sometimes even a salt can look like a sugar, and even a jackfruit, for those of you who remember how a jackfruit looks like, it looks very big and it looks very scary, but inside it's so sweet and so soft. So we can't judge anything by its look. And it is said, do not believe what you hear, and believe only 50% of what you see. And also it is said that beware of half truth. You've heard about half truth, because you may end up with the wrong half, which is not the truth, and we may judge somebody based on that. So it's very important that we don't jump into conclusions based on outward appearances, because it can be deceptive, and we generally categorize things or human beings as good, bad, he's a great person, even a great devotee, or he's not a great devotee, etc. And sometimes the offense can be more when we actually verbalize it, right? So we may tell others based on this half truth, or based on this deception of the appearance. We may even, talk about this person bad to other people as well. And we learn from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where there was an avaduta. Avaduta means one who's divorced the material world, and he's extremely happy. He's got nothing, but he's extremely happy. And King Yadu, from whose dynasty even Lord Krishna appeared. So Yadu, who has everything, he's the king of the entire world, and he's got everything, wealth, fame, everything. And he says, I have everything, but I'm not happy. But you seem to be like a beggar, and you seem to have all the happiness. Tell me the secret. And he goes on to say that he's got, learned from 24 gurus. But for today's topic, what is important is he learned how to control the tongue after seeing one of the guru, after learning from one of the gurus, and that is fish. Because fish is actually looking at the outward appearance of this beautiful, juicy bait, but it does not see the sharp hook which is underneath that. And and what this avaduta learned is to control the tongue, not only what we eat, which is Krishna Prasad, but also he learned not to talk bad things about others as well. So here, when we make a judgment, which is, we jump to conclusions based on false appearance or based on initial appearance, we may even, get into problems because of what we speak about others as well. And this is a natural tendency. Unfortunately, it's a natural tendency of human beings, especially in this Kali Yuga. And how do we know that? So there's a, if you get a chance, if you've not read it, most of you would have read it, the 4th chapter of the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So here it explains, I'm just going to just paraphrase verses 4 to 6. Okay, 12.4, you can say verse number 4 to 6, especially 4 and 6. Right? So it is said that one's spiritual position is determined by the external symbols. Okay, so you can think of examples, right? This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 12th canto 4th chapter. One's spiritual position is determined by external symbols. So we may, different personalities may judge based on, okay, somebody's got a shika, so he should be great. Somebody's wearing a dhoti like this, or a sari like this, so they should be great, or somebody is not so great. So this is in Srimad Bhagavatam. One's spiritual position is determined by external symbols. So he's got a tilak that is beautiful, that means he should be so we always go by that. And it is also said that one's beauty is also determined by external appearance, so that there is inner beauty which is more important, but in Kali Yuga is the external beauty that is being judged. So based on this topic that we have chosen, don't judge the book by its cover, we'll try to see whether there is any instruction in Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna teaches us. But before that, we all know as devotees that Bhagavad Gita was spoken in a short period of time in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So some say it's 45 minutes, some say it's 1.5 hours. Let's say it's 45 minutes. So in this 45 minutes or 1.5 hours, it's pretty much the most important aspects are given there to Arjuna, and through Arjuna to all of us. You can say it is like a formula or headlines, critical headlines that are given. The details are not there in Bhagavad Gita because it's the verses, which is the headlines, and the formula, most important formulas are there. But for us to actually understand more about the contents of Bhagavad Gita, we need to go to Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita for that matter. So when we go to Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, the practical aspects of implementing or devotees who have implemented the instructions of Bhagavad Gita is what we have in Srimad Bhagavatam especially. So there, for example, whatever is stated in Bhagavad Gita is not what we already know. It's not obvious. It's not the default for all the human beings. It's what needs to be cultivated. Because in that short period of time, Lord Krishna does not say, eat with your mouth, ear with your ears. No, he does not say that. It's few layers beneath that where he's explaining about, example 3.13, so here Lord Krishna says, do not cook and eat for yourself. I'm paraphrasing, but if you cook and eat for yourself, you verily eat sin. But if you offer it to me and then eat, then your sins are eradicated. See, it's few layers beneath the obvious, right? And Lord Krishna explains in the 18th chapter, most famous verse, Sarva Dharman, 18.66, abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. So here again, how do we know how to surrender? Right? So going back to the 3.13 verse that we just talked about, so Krishna goes beneath the obvious, few layers beneath the obvious, and we read from the Govardhan Leela how Lord Krishna is teaching Nanda Maharaj and others what to offer. Then we go to Chaitanya Charitamrita and we see how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya offered wonderful ingredients to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Advaita Acharya offered so many wonderful good stuff to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was there. So similarly, so we understand the bigger picture, because we can't just stay with, okay, we have to just offer, as Lord Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita 9.26, Patra Pushpa Balam. No, we go beyond that, because we read from Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam what was wonderfully offered to the Lord. So similarly, so that's what we mean by going from Bhagavad Gita. It's a beautiful correlation between Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The practical aspects and examples of implementing the practical aspects, theoretical aspects in Bhagavad Gita, and the practical aspects of implementing the theoretical aspects in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, through these pastimes. So 18.66, Sarva Dharman Parityajam Mamekam Sharanam Bhaja. In that, how do we surrender? So we know that is the most important. Okay, how do we surrender? Then we go to Srimad Bhagavatam, and there are many, many pastimes, like 8th canto, Gajendra, how he surrendered. He was a Indradumna, King Indradumna in the previous life, and he remembered all those wonderful prayers, and with that mood and devotion he chanted when his life was in danger, and that's the surrender. And then the result of the surrender is Lord Krishna personally came, or Vishnu personally came on Garuda, and gave him the same form as Lord Krishna. So the practical aspects is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talks about pranayama, but very briefly. But then we understand from Srimad Bhagavatam the different aspects of pranayama, like puraka. Puraka means inhalation. Then we have this kumbhaka, which is holding the breath, and then we have richaka, which is the exhalation. So all that is there, and we know from different past, like how prachetas practice this pranayama, how Dhruva Maharaj practiced the pranayama. So we get the practical aspects from Srimad Bhagavatam. So what does Lord Krishna teach us in Bhagavad Gita about the topic that we have chosen, which is do not judge the book by its cover? So if you go to the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, maybe most of you would have guessed it, which is the 18th verse of the 5th chapter, 5.18, where Lord Krishna teaches us, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Kavi Astini Sunichaiva Pandita Samadarshana. So in this particular verse, Lord Krishna teaches us how an humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, is able to see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater with equal vision is able to see that. So that's the instruction that Lord Krishna is given to Arjuna, and through Arjuna to all of us. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Astini. So in this verse, did Lord Krishna walk his talk? Because it is said even though Acharya is one who shows by example or leads by example, right? So we can't just preach without following it. So that's what the Acharyas does. Now, did Krishna do that? Absolutely. So we can take this particular verse and we'll take each one of those components. So it is said how one has to see with equal vision, a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, all the 5 components. So we'll take these 5 components and analyze from various texts in Srimad Bhagavatam, various pastimes in Srimad Bhagavatam and in Chaitanya Charitamrita. There could be many more examples, but here just to start off with this particular verse, the five component, a Brahmin. So see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmin. So this is what Krishna taught. Did Krishna see that? Did Krishna actually practically implement that to show us by example? Because three aspects. One is the theoretical aspect from what we learn from the scripture, which is Bhagavad Gita. The second is how this theory was put into practice in practical situations, which is the pastimes from Srimad Bhagavatam. But the third and most important is that feature is that how do we incorporate the theory, the example of practical, and how we can personally internalize that and change for the better. Because these two are good, but then it depends on how we are able to absorb that information. So did Krishna treat all the Brahmins with the equal vision? We have many examples. So if you go to the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we read the pastimes about Prithu Maharaj. So Prithu Maharaj, it's a long pastime, one of the longest pastime. It has about 450 verses in our Srimad Bhagavatam Katha and Scarborough. We are covering that now. So here, towards the end of this pastime, Prithu Maharaj actually glorifies the Brahmanas. And who are the Brahmanas? The four Kumaras who visited. They're the Brahmins who were eternally, say, about 5 years old. And he's glorifying them. They're Brahmins. And he's washing their feet and taking the water, sprinkling in his head, etc. So this is Prithu is an expansion, you can say, a Shakti Avashya avatar of Lord Krishna. So you can say non-different from Lord Krishna. He's worshipping the Brahmins. So he's seeing them with equal vision. If you go to the seventh canto, 7.5.23, the famous verse where the 9 forms of devotional service is described by Prahlad Maharaj, Shavanam Kirtana Vishnu Smaranam, you know that verse. So in that, by the way, it's the longest purport in the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam has got 18,000 verses, and the longest purport in the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam is the 7.5.23/24 verse together, and in that we read that there is a quotation from a Brahma Vaivarta Puran, where there is this Brahmin who's actually heard from other Brahmins that even if he does not have anything, that is okay, as long as with love and devotion he's offering to Lord mentally. So he doesn't have anything to offer to the Lord, but here in his mind he's offering the best of all the ingredients, in a golden plate and everything, and then he put his finger, we know the story, it became hot, he felt the heat, and then Vishnu laughed, smiled at that, and then goddess of fortune asked, why are you smiling? And then immediately Lord Vishnu asked the Vishnu Dutas to go and get him from earth to the spiritual world as well. So, here he's treating everybody equally, even though he was not offering with actual ingredients, he's giving that, benefit to this Brahmana. He's treating the Brahmin equally to someone who may be very rich as well, offering all the ingredients, even though he did not offer any ingredients. So this Brahmana was given this type of liberation. And there are many other pastimes as well. So in the 52nd chapter of the 10th canto, Rukmini Devi, that was the first, she's the first queen of Lord Krishna. And she's never heard of she's never seen Lord Krishna, but she's heard from the traveling mendicants. And so she finally decides to give this love letter to Lord Krishna to a Brahmin. And when this Brahmin approached Lord Krishna gave him all the respect. Lord Krishna is washing his feet. It's not the Brahmin is washing Krishna's feet. Lord Krishna is washing Brahmin's feet who brought this letter. So that's another example of Krishna treating these Brahmins very highly. And also in the 69th chapter, when Narada Muni actually goes to visit Lord Krishna in Dwarka, he's going to different palaces of Lord Krishna. And here Lord Krishna is actually worshipping Narada Muni because he's Brahmin and he's washing his feet, etc. And one more example we can think of is the 80th chapter of the 10th canto when Sudama Vipra goes. Sudama Vipra was the friend of Lord Krishna who was a student, classmate of Lord Krishna when they learned together with Sandipani Muni. So, it's a long past and all of us know. So he goes and he's worshipped by Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is washing his feet, doing arati. Not the Brahmin is doing arati for Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is doing arati. for this Brahmin. So Lord Krishna gives, not only he teaches in 5.18 Bhagavad Gita, but from various pastimes from Srimad Bhagavatam that we just heard, where he is actually giving that respect to Brahman. What about cow? We know, during the month of Damodar, we celebrate the Gopashtami. And Gopashtami is when Lord Krishna was graduated from taking care of the calves to taking care of the cows. And in that, Mother Yasoda said, "Oh, my dear Krishna, you have to wear that slippers, or shoe, you can say. You have to wear, because your feet is so tender. And when you go into the forest, there could be sharp thorns, sharp stones, etc. So you need to wear shoes." And what did Lord Krishna say? Lord Krishna says, yeah, no problem. I will wear the shoes as long as you're able to make the shoes for the 900,000 cows, as we know. Nanda Maharaj had so many thousands of cows. So now if you have a calculator, you can take the calculator. 900,000 cows multiplied by 4 legs, right? So that comes to about 3,600,000 shoes mother had to make if she wanted Krishna to wear the shoes. So Lord Krishna always glorifies and treats the cows equally. So we had some examples of the practical implementation by Lord Krishna through the pastimes for Brahmins, for cows, for elephant. We just heard about the deliverance of this Gajendra, the elephant. He did not say, who cares about this one elephant? There are so many thousands of elephants and human beings. I'm God, I'm so busy. No, he didn't say that. He treated the elephant with the same respect as he treated the Brahmana. He came all the way from the spiritual world to save Gajendra, the elephant. But again, there could be other aspects, not just Garuda, not just this elephant, but also we have Gajendra, the elephant, but we also have Kuvalapidya, so which is in the just when Lord Krishna went from Vrindavan to Mathura. At that time, Kamsa had set up this elephant Kuvalayapida to kill Lord Krishna. So at that time, Lord Krishna knew that this elephant needed to be killed, but Krishna treated this Gajendra, where he came all the way and he gave him the same form as Lord Krishna. So that's an example of Krishna treating even an elephant with equal vision. And what about dog? So we haven't heard anything from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So treating this dog equally, so we have to go to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ante Leela, first chapter. And I'm giving some reference so that you can read that and imbibe that in a much more better way, because a lot of information is there. In the short period of time, we will cover only as much as we can. But here, if you go to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ante Leela, chapter 1, is a beautiful pastime of how the devotees, all of them, went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu every year in Jagannath Puri. And there is this pastime of this beautiful dog. Actually, I don't think so it's a beautiful dog. It's a dog. Beautiful pastime of this dog going with the devotees. Sivananda Sen is one of those devotees who used to pay so much money for everybody to travel from all over to Jagannath Puri. And in fact, he had actually paid for this passage of this dog on a boat as well, because it's a stray dog. And then this stray dog was missing in action for a day, and then finally, when all of them actually met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this stray dog was there already with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally feeding this dog with coconut pulp. And they saw with their own eyes how this dog went back to God. So again, another example of Lord Krishna himself in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, treating even the dog equally, like that of the elephant, like that of the Brahmin. And also another aspect is a dog eater. So it is said, Aho Bataswa Pachato Gariya Nedjiva Grevatate Namatupya. It is said in Kapila Muni's teachings that even if one is a dog eater, it's supposed to be much worse than people who eat chicken and anything else. Dog eater is supposed to be the worst. And it is said that even if one is a dog eater, if he is chanting the holy name, he becomes worshipable. And the practical aspect of that was, we read from 9th canto, 21st chapter, where we know the pastime of Ranti Deva. We know he fasted for 48 days, and then a Brahmin came, and then a Sudra came, and a man with dog came, and then a Chandala, who's a dog eater, came. And then he was given equal respect, and he did not even have anything to eat or drink even after 48 days because he gave everything. So that's a practical example of how Lord Krishna taught this verse 5.18 to Arjuna, and then the practical implementation of each one of those 5 categories we can pick from many pastimes in Srimad Bhagavatam. So again, coming back to judging, not to judge the book by its cover. So there are many incidences, many pastimes in Srimad Bhagavatam as well, that what looks ordinary can be extraordinary. What looks bad can be good as well. So we'll take some examples, because stories are the ones that will convey the message very easily than by philosophical dialogue. So that's one of the beauties of Chaitanya Bhagavat, because Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami has said that read Chaitanya Bhagavat before you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, because it's Grantha Leela. So it's more of pastimes in that. So it'll be easy to comprehend. So here we can take some examples. There is this story of a husband and wife having a mongoose as a pet. It's very strange, like how can you have a mongoose as a pet? But they had it, and this mongoose was very good, and they had a very good relationship. They liked this mongoose a lot. Then eventually, the mother, the wife gave birth to a baby, and they were worried. Oh, mongoose is in the house, and there's a baby in the house. And as the baby was growing up, few months old, all of them were together, and they were monitoring this mongoose, and the mongoose was very protective of this child. So everything was good. One day the husband went to work, and the wife closed the door and just went to buy some vegetables, because they bring vegetables in a trolley outside the house. And she went for a few minutes, but her mind was, this is the first time I'm leaving this mongoose with my 4-month-old baby. Hopefully, okay, always thinking. And then, in a few minutes time, she returned. She opened the door, and she saw the mongoose with blood, all over its face. From the mouth especially, blood is oozing out. So immediately this lady took this big iron rod that is used to smash the rice, to separate the rice from the husk. So she took that, and she whacked this mongoose to death, because immediately as soon as she saw the mongoose with blood in the mouth, what she thought was that the mongoose had actually killed the child in that small gap that when nobody was there. And then with tears in her eyes, and she went, she didn't even want to see how the baby is. When she went close, the baby is happily playing, but there is a giant cobra next to the baby that has been bitten to death by the mongoose. So this mongoose, as a pet, was very proud to come and show that he had actually saved the baby. But the mother thought, so external appearance can be deceptive. So she lost the mongoose actually, which saved the child. The child is alive, and she would have had this mongoose to save the child from more cobras if it comes. But based on the appearance, this mongoose was killed. Some of you would have heard about Joshua Bell. Joshua Bell is one of the greatest violin players. He's greatest violin players, and people pay hundreds of dollars to go to his concert, Joshua Bell. And one day what he did was, in a rugged jeans and a normal looking t-shirt. So he wore a baseball cap that half covered his face, and he took his $3 million violin, and he went to Washington, D.C. So he went to that L'Enfant Plaza subway, and for over 43 minutes, he played one of the greatest, tunes that can be played in violin, in the $3 million violin. He played it for 43 minutes, and he deliberately put, in that carrying case of this violin, he put some change so that others can see that there's already some change. So it motivates, subliminally motivates others to put some change. So he had deliberately placed it. Not that he needed money; he's already a millionaire. But and people, as I said, people pay millions or hundreds of dollars, to go and see his concert. So he put some change in this, case that carries this $3 million violin, and he played for 43 minutes. One of the greatest, compositions that can be played in a violin. And you know what? He just got a few more coins there. Nobody bothered. Everybody was just going, to their work, coming back, chatting away, etc. Because they judge by external. Oh, such a great personality cannot be in a subway, cannot be begging. Even though this melodious violin tunes were the best that anybody can hear, they judge by the external, by the situation, circumstance. Even we will be thinking about that somebody is being in God consciousness for 25, 30 years. So that class will have more quality than somebody who's been only for 4 or 5 years. So we may judge, but here it is. The greatest violin player played, and he just got few coins. But the previous day, previous weeks, and in the future weeks, people pay thousands of dollars, in fact, hundreds and thousands of dollars to go with the family to hear his concert. So that's another example that, we should not fall into the same trap of judging something by the external situation. And so that's an important aspect that we have to learn. And that's why these pastimes are there in Srimad Bhagavatam. This verse is there in Bhagavad Gita for us to learn from it so that we don't fall into the trap. Another story is that there was this Pandit. This Pandit is such a learned Pandit, but he does not have any money. So he does not have proper clothes. He's got torn clothes, and he goes out house to house, and he begs for some food. And everybody, of course, they chase him away, go away, go away. He had a luck. Somebody gave him impeccable dhoti and beautiful kurta. So he was so surprised that somebody donated him this. So he wore that, and he went to begging, and he went to beg in the same places that he begged, few days ago. Now, one of the householders saw his beautiful dress and this Pandit, and said, "Please come, sir. I'm going to give you wonderful prasad." And he prepared wonderful dishes for him to eat. He doesn't know him, but because of his external. So what did this Pandit do? He took this sweet rice and he said, "My dear clothes, please eat, please eat. My dear dhoti, this is the best sabji, please eat, please eat." So this householder was confused. He said, "What do you mean? Why are you offering all these food stuff to the dress?" And then he said, "When I came with these torn clothes just a few days ago, you did not give me any respect. And now I'm the same person, but you're giving respect to me only because of this clothes. So I'm just offering that to the clothes." So it's again very intuitive to understand the meaning behind not to judge something or somebody by external. So this is another fascinating story actually, this happened when there was a 30, actually, let me start this. So this is in California, in the military base. Dale Brown, you may have heard about Dale Brown, for those of you who slightly follow basketball. So Louisiana State University, was a coach of LSU Tigers for over 25 years. So he's one of the very famous, great coaches. So as he gave a speech in this military base in California, a person who's 7 feet tall and 250 pounds in weight approached him and he said, "I love basketball, but none of my coaches, I go to different teams, none of my coaches are taking me. They said, you are totally unfit. You look so clumsy. You cannot jump. You know, basketball is not a game for you. You can try football because, football, big persons play, but basketball, you have to be tall, but you have to be very nimble footed and fit. You're too big for that." And he was devastated because he loves playing basketball. And he said, "Oh, you are in the army?" So Dale Brown asked, "Are you in the army?" He said, "No, sir, I'm the son of the person who's in the army. My father works for army. He's in the military base, but I love the basketball, and all my coaches have said no to me. Don't even waste your time." So all the coaches judged him by the external. So Dale Brown, who's an extremely good coach, saw the potential based on his intensity towards the sport, and he gave him a regimen. You follow this and you'll be great. He ended up being Shaq O'Neal. So this big man, 250 pound, at that time he was 13-year-old boy who met Dale Brown in this military camp, turned out to be eventually Shaq O'Neal. As you can see, some of you remember, he's pretty big. He's a little misfit for basketball, but he became the greatest person, one of the greatest basketball players, because of the actual good coach seeing beyond the obvious, right? Beneath the obvious. accomplished. So he saw the intensity does not matter your external. He saw the what he can accomplish, right? So the so-called expert coaches, other expert coaches got it wrong, because experts can be wrong. We know that Titanic was built by experts and it went down, whereas Ark of Noah, at least according to the Bible, survived even though it was built by an amateur. And in the famous story of David versus Goliath, they said David doesn't have a chance. He was so tiny, Goliath was so big. But then David thought Goliath was too big to miss, and then slingshot, and we know the history, right? And more examples of, don't judge by the external, right? So when you see a caterpillar, you can see it's very ordinary looking. In fact, it's ugly looking, like a lava, right? And eventually it builds this cocoon, and then it becomes this most beautiful butterfly with the most colorful wings, going from one flower to another flower. So if anybody judges the caterpillar, there's no comparison between a caterpillar and what it eventually becomes later on, which is the butterfly. So just giving more examples about the topic that we have chosen, don't judge the book by the cover. So this is another general, incident that had happened with regard to, there is a husband and wife, and this husband and wife in USA, they decided to go from Boston to Cambridge. Now, for those of you who have been to Boston, Cambridge is where this Harvard University is there, the world famous Harvard University. So Boston is here to the north, or to the northwest is this Cambridge, where this Harvard University is there. So this husband and wife, very ordinarily dressed, doesn't look anything, they don't look anything different, special, stand out, nothing. So they decided to just go and meet the president of Harvard University. So they go, take the train. It takes only about 12 minutes to go from Boston to Cambridge, right? So they went there, they got off the train, went to Harvard University, went to the secretary of this president of Harvard University and said, we would like to see the president. This secretary looked at them up and down, nothing, attractive in that, very ordinarily dressed people. She said, do you have an appointment? They said, no, we don't have an appointment. Okay, please sit down. I'll see whether, I can send you in, or whether he's got time. I don't think so he's got time. Let me try. So they waited for hours, hoping, this secretary was hoping that in frustration, this husband and wife will go. They didn't go. They just stayed put there. So finally, this secretary decided to go to the president of Harvard University and said, these people, I thought they'll go away, but they're not going away. It's better you just come and talk to them outside and then just get rid of them so they can go. So this president was so busy. Okay, let me come out. And he said, yeah, what can I do for you? So at that time, the father, the husband and wife said, our son studied in Harvard for 1 year, and in a tragic circumstance, he died. So we want to erect a memorial for him. So immediately this president said, what do you think if we erect a statue for everybody who's a student of Harvard when they eventually die, and everybody's going to die, then Harvard University will become just a cemetery. So we can't we can't do anything about it. Now the wife said, no, it's not that we want to have a statue. So maybe can we have a building named after my son? I said, what are you talking about? We have buildings that are worth 7.5 million. This happened many years ago. Okay? So at that time, 7.5 million was great, even now, but it was much greater at that time. So this wife turned to the husband and said, it takes only 7.5 million to start a university. And then she said, let's start a university by ourselves. And that was the start of the Stanford University in California, because they are Leyland Stanford. So the secretary and the president of Harvard University said it's documented. You can check it and read it in Google as well. So they thought they were ordinary people. They were multimillionaires, and eventually they started the Stanford University, whereas Harvard University could have benefited from them. So there are many, many examples that we can think of. We have a few more minutes, 15 more minutes or so. So with your permission, we can hear more pastimes about this important topic of not to judge the book by its cover. So let's go to Chaitanya Charitamrita or Chaitanya Bhagavat. So Chaitanya Bhagavat has a fascinating pastime about how not to judge somebody by the external. So this is in the Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhya Kanta, seventh chapter. So if you get a chance, please do so and read and relish this. So here, in a nutshell, I'm not going to go into the details of this pastime, But this Chaitanya Bhagavat is penned down by Vrindavan Das Thakur, and Vrindavan Das Thakur is the last disciple of Nityananda Prabhu. Is the last disciple of Nityananda Prabhu, and he penned down this Chaitanya Bhagavat. And it is said that Vrindavan Das Thakur is an incarnation of Vyasadeva. So in this particular pastime, there is this great personality by the name of Mukunda. So Mukunda, he is the one who started the Kirtan when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested the Sata Prahariya Leela, 21 hours of ecstatic manifestation. So Mukunda actually started that Kirtan. And in Shiva's Thakur, he used to sing very often. He was a classmate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How do you like that, being a classmate of God? So Mukunda was the classmate of God. And he spoke to Gadadhar Pandit one day. Gadadhar Pandit, we know Panchatattva, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadhara, Shri Vasadi, Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is non-different from Lord Krishna. And then we have Nityananda Prabhu is non-different from Balaram. Advaita Acharya is none other than a combined incarnation of Mahavishnu and Sadasiva. And Gadadhar Pandit is none other than expansion of Srimati Radharani. And Shiva Thakur is none other than expansion of Narada Muni. So here, this Mukunda and Gadadhar Pandit are friends. So Mukunda speaks to Gadadhar Pandit and he said, there is this great Vaishnava who's come to town. He's living here. I would like you to come with me and meet him. So Gadadhar Pandit, obviously, Vaishnava Association and Sadhu Sangha. Today we heard a wonderful class by His Grace Dravid Prabhu and on the Sadhu Sangashtaka from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the importance of association with great devotees. So here Mukunda, as soon as Mukunda said this to Gadadhar Pandit said, yes, I'm going to come with you. So both of them go to another great personality's house, and that is Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So Pundarik Vidyanidhi is there, and as soon as both of them go, Pundarik Vidyanidhi is asking about the welfare of Gadadhar Pandit to Mukunda, because Mukunda and Pundarik Vidyanidhi are friends. And then after that, what Gadadhar Pandit is actually seeing is this Pundarik Vidyanidhi who looks too opulent here. So it is said in the Chaitanya Bhagavat how he was surrounded, or what he was surrounded with. It is said that he was well groomed with amlaki oil, and he was sitting in a extraordinary a red color couch that has got brass arms, and he's got 3 canopies on top, extraordinary canopies on top, and next to him was a bed that is made of a wonderful material, as well as it's got a cover made of silk, and there were so many pillows there, and he's got many spittoons made of very expensive metal. Spittoons is where they take beetle and they spit, and he's also got a lot of water pots, fancy water pots. He's got a beautiful tilak, and he's got 2 people fanning him, and when you see him, nothing but materialism. So at that point in time, so Gadadhar Pandit is actually thinking in his mind that why did Mukunda waste his time by bringing me, saying that, let's go see a great Vaishnava. This person looks to be one of the most materially advanced person. Why did we waste our time? He didn't say that, but he was thinking. As soon as Gadadhar Pandit was thinking that way, immediately Mukunda, who's expert in singing, as you just heard, he chanted 2 wonderful verses. Aho bakiyam stanakadakutam jigamsa yaya yayadapi asanti lebe gatim datrichtam tatonyam kamba dayalum sharanam prajeva. So it's a beautiful verse from 3rd canto. It glorifies the nature of Lord Krishna, where even when Putana came to kill him, poison him, how Lord Krishna gave her the position of a nurse in the spiritual world. So, and he again, one other verse that he actually sang beautifully was 10:6:35, starting with Putana. So these 2 verses, as soon as Mukunda sang these 2 verses, you can see extraordinary change in Pundarik Vidyani. It's a paradigm shift. So he tore all his clothes and he was there in this ecstatic emotion for 6 hours, it is said. For 6 hours, he was in this ecstatic oblivion. Then he kicked all the spittoons and water pots, and he tore all these silk covering on this bed, etc. And he fell down from so far high where he was sitting on this sort of red color cushioned throne. He fell down and they thought he broke all his bones. So 6 hours he was in this ecstatic oblivion. And then Gadadhar Pandit realized not to judge somebody by the external. So here it was Pundarik Vidyanidhi was an extraordinary devotee, but he judged him based on the external appearance. So he looked very ordinary from spiritual perspective, but he was such an extraordinary personality. And he knew the mistake that he made, and eventually he got initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Gadadhar Pandit, even though it's an expansion of Srimati Radharani, got initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So this is a great lesson for all of us, not to judge the book by its cover. We can go on and on and on. There are so many examples in Srimad Bhagavatam for us to understand this aspect from important aspect from the scripture. We can take more examples. We can in the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Shiva. Remember, Lord Shiva, his father-in-law was Daksha. Sati's father was Daksha, and he said, "Oh, Shiva, only your name." Shiva means auspicious, by the way. Only your name is auspicious. Everything else is inauspicious about you. You are staying in a crematorium and you're putting all the ashes everywhere. So he did that based on his appearance. But we know what's the pastime in the fourth canto. Eventually, Daksha's head was cut off by Veerabhadra, and then when Lord Brahma came and pleaded with Lord Shiva, then a goat head was attached. So again, judging somebody by external. So Daksha judged Lord Shiva by his external appearance. And fifth canto, we read about Rishabdev. Rishabdev is an expansion of Lord Krishna, and how he was wandering everywhere with almost no clothes and like a madman, and everybody was spitting on him, etc. Because people judge by the external. And also Jada Bharat. Jada Bharat is Bharat's, Bharat became a deer, and then he became Jada Bharat. He looked like a madman. And then everybody did not know the qualities of Jada Bharat. And then we know the pastime is instruction to Rahugana. And, at that time, Rahugana also knew or learned that you should not judge somebody by the external. So many pastimes are there. Vritrasura, he is a demon, but he was such a great devotee of the Lord. And we read from the sixth canto, not to judge somebody by the external. Prahlad Maharaj himself, right? So when he was in the womb of his mother, Kayadu, even the demigods did not know the glories of Prahlad Maharaj, because they judged based on the external, and the external is not Prahlad Maharaj's external, but Kayadu. And who's Kayadu? Hiranyakashipu's wife. And then Narada Muni came and instructed, and then Prahlad Maharaj became, manifested to the entire world, as we read from the seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So there are unlimited pastimes of how not to judge somebody or something by the external. On the flip side, so far all these examples, what we saw was not to judge something that looks ordinary, because that can be extraordinary. But on the flip side, what looks good can also become bad. We may judge something to be, oh, this is great, best, etc. It may not turn out to be that. And we know that from our own life individually. If you remember, we've gone through that many times. I remember this pastime. This is not a pastime, it's a story. It's a real story, how the Eskimos kill the wolf. So what they do is, it's not great hearing for devotees, but it's a reality. Sometimes we have to understand how things work in some areas so that we can learn from it too. So it's a very sharp knife that they have, probably about a foot long, and it's got the most sharpest edges on both sides. So how the Eskimos kill the wolf that is coming to trouble them is that they put animal blood on top of it. They pour a lot of animal blood on top of that, and they leave it out to be frozen, because Eskimos, they are in the cold place. It freezes, and then what they do is they bring it back again, pour another layer of blood, so that it gets thicker and thicker. It's like a popsicle. It becomes like a popsicle. and then they plant it on the ground with the handle down with the sharp point facing up on both sides. So this wolf comes, what looks good for the wolf, so starts licking it little by little, and then even though the tongue of this wolf gets cut, he likes the taste, and then by the morning the wolf is dead. So what may look good, turns out not to be looking good. And also, scripturally speaking, from the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, especially the ninth chapter, if I remember 4.9, yes, that's when we have this great looking sannyasi. Okay, is the greatest looking sannyasi. And what does he do? He steals the horse that is meant for the horse sacrifice, which is Aswamedha Yagya. Prithu Maharaj is trying to do the 100th sacrifice, right? 100th sacrifice for the welfare of humanity. And who's this greatest looking sannyasi? You can read that from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's Indra. He comes disguised as this mendicant, and his aim is to stop this 100th sacrifice, because the universal record is held, not world record, universal record is held by Indra, and it's going to be equaled and maybe overtaken by Prithu Maharaj, who's Lord Krishna himself, and he comes in the guise of the sannyasi. So again, externals can be deceptive. That's the story that we understand. 3 times he tries to steal this horse of Prithu Maharaj. And also another example, or many examples, like I'm going to stop with this, many examples in the 10th canto. 10th canto, all these, many demons that came, they all look so good in many cases, but, looks can be deceptive. Putana, she looked like goddess of fortune, and she ended up being a demoness that was killed, and she stretched 12 miles long, it says in Srimad Bhagavatam. Agasura, Bagasura, all these cowherd boys were fascinated by this, and they almost got killed, or some of them got killed, and Krishna brought them back to life. So it's very important that we understand this, so it doesn't come naturally to us. We will judge the book by the cover, and that's what Srimad Bhagavatam also says, that generally we judge things by what we look at, and especially in the 12.4 that we read, that somebody's proclivity, appearance can be deceptive, and in the 12th canto it says how we judge somebody's spiritual proclivity by their external appearance as well. And that's why Krishna teaches this verse in Bhagavad Gita 5.18, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Kaviyastini Suni Chaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. And in a nutshell, in the summary, so we learn to have the eyes of mercy and not eyes of judgment. And also, we treat everybody equal, means default is treat everybody with respect and importance. And again, we have to hear this again and again, because it'll go back to where we were before, because until we change our thinking, we will always recycle our experience. So remember this, until we change our thinking, we will always recycle our past experience. So we stay equipoised and don't get carried away or put down anybody. So that's what we wanted to cover under the topic of do not judge by its cover. So we are at the top of the hour. So I would like to open it up for any comments or suggestions or questions that some devotees may have. And if you would like to share anything that you have experienced in your life by you judging the book by the cover and learning from it, we would be happy to hear that. And I think we have about 5 minutes or 10 minutes to share this. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. So,
Hare Krishna.
I see Pitambar Prabhu put some questions in chat. Pitambar Prabhu, you can unmute and then maybe ask question yourself.
Or you can read it, Prabhu.
Okay, so I'll just, oh, he's there. Okay. Oh, we can't hear him actually. So let me read it for.
Can you listen me now, Prabhu?
Yes.
Can you listen me now?
Yes.
You can listen. You can. Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Anand Gorang, Prabhu. So wonderful to have your association, and one of the best sessions I have ever attended.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, can you listen me, Prabhu?
We can hear you.
Okay. So, Prabhu, there are a couple of questions. The very first one is, in order to avoid offenses, would it be right to say that it's none of the business of a Krishna conscious person to judge others? I'll repeat the question. In order to avoid offenses, would it be right to say it's none of the business of a Krishna conscious person to judge others?
Okay, and your second question?
Second question is, Prabhu, we all have tendencies of fault finding in others while ignoring our own drawbacks. How to come out of this trap, Prabhu?
Okay, so thank you for your question. And so the first question, sorry?
There's a third question as well, but okay, so sorry, inundating. And the third one is, in the unfortunate event of we having committed the offense of having already judged someone wrongly, are there any atonements or rectifications based on scriptures?
Okay, it's a good question. So not going by any sequence. Thank you for your questions, Prabhu. So I would like to start off with the third question that you asked is like if he already committed an offense. An example that you said was judging, and it can be an offense in many levels as well, right? So again, we go by what is there in scriptures. So again, it is said that the only way to rectify the mistakes that we did against a devotee is by asking for forgiveness from the same devotee. That's the only way. So we know that from the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Ambarish Maharaj, we know this long story, beautiful story. Ambarish Maharaj past time, Durvasa Muni had offended him by getting offended that he did not wait for him to come back from taking bath. And then what he did was he just took a drop of water. Taking a drop of water is on an Ekadasi, it is like eating as well as it's not like eating. So that's the best decision that you could make. But then, Durvasa Muni was so upset, and then the Sudarshan Chakra chased Durvasa Muni everywhere. And we know this is what I wanted to answer mainly. So how can we rectify is that he went to all the higher planetary system, and the Sudarshan Chakra was chasing him everywhere. So Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, even Lord Vishnu said the only person who can actually stop this is Ambarish Maharaj himself. So he comes. Durvasa Muni is such a great personality. He fell at the feet of Ambarish Maharaj, and then Ambarish Maharaj offered wonderful prayers. Sometimes when we do the yajna, we offer these wonderful prayers of Ambarish Maharaj to Sudarshan Chakra, and that was the one that saved Durvasa Muni. So, and we also have many other examples, because you asked from the scriptures, right? Another example is what we briefly touched when Daksha actually offended Lord Shiva. So after he had his head was cut off by Veerabhadra, and then Lord Brahma pleaded to get his life back. And then Lord Shiva, being so magnanimous, is para dukkha dukhi. So he allowed for this goat head to be placed, and then he came back to life. And what did he do? As soon as Daksha got the head of a goat, he actually fell at the feet of his son-in-law, Lord Shiva, and he pleaded to forgive him, right? So that's an example of somebody judging the book by its cover and offending him, and then going through this extreme problem of getting killed. And eventually Daksha again was born as Daksha too, later on to Prachetas. All the Prachetas married the moon god's son, and then a moon god's daughter, sorry, and then he came as Daksha too. So that answers, hopefully that gives a glimpse of how to rectify the offense based on the scriptures, right? And I think judging others, right? So again, there is a difference between judging others and and also to know what is right, what is wrong, right? So judging others in the sense, one is, we don't have to judge the devotees based on their looks, whether they have shikha or not shikha. So if they have shikha, they are great, etc., etc. That's our natural tendency for us to judge. But at the same time, we need to know what is right and what is wrong, not just from the perspective of judging a devotee, but also from a non-devotee, right? So we can't treat everybody same as well, because you can have somebody with an ulterior motive. I'm not talking in terms of a devotee, but you need to know, we can't treat somebody who's got a shady past as the same as some who's got that. We have intelligence. Krishna has given us intelligence, right? So that's a subtle difference between judging a personality versus knowing how to deal with different personalities. Okay, so that's an important part. If you don't do that, if you say, yeah, everybody should be treated as equal, let me take a scorpion and hug, let me offer my respectful obeisances to a cobra because snake is there in Lord Shiva. No, we can't do things like that. We can't say, yeah, there is Paramatma in the heart of a cobra, Paramatma in the heart of a lion, so let me hug them, right? So subtle difference between what is to be judged, but also what is not to be judged, but also knowing what to do and what not to do based on the intelligence that Krishna has given us. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. And yeah.
The first one, generally, how to avoid offenses. Would it be right to say that in the very first place, being a Krishna conscious person, we should be keeping away because it's none of our business to judge others. Would I be right in saying so? I'm saying that.
Yeah, the whole 1 hour of what we discussed is about that, Prabhu. So we have taken all these pastimes from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam. We just condensed into this short 1 hour. What we covered was I was just counting, at least about 12 different stories or pastime. When I say story, we talk about Shaq O'Neal, we talk about mongoose, non-scriptural references as well. So in a way, not to judge, because the default is we will judge, because that's what Srimad Bhagavatam says, right? 12.4 to 6, it says spiritual position and beauty is judged by external symbols in Kali Yuga. And that's why this verse from Bhagavad Gita 5.18 and practical aspects of implementing this 5.18, that Lord Krishna walked his talk, right? Walked his talk in the examples that we covered, how he treated the Brahmins equally, the cow, Gopashtami, the shoes, and elephant Gajendra, as well as dog, which is Sivananda Sen's dog, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and dog eater. We also saw this pastime of Ranti Deva, right? So the whole idea, naturally, if you don't keep hearing this, all of us, by nature, in this Kali Yuga, we will be going back to where our natural tendency is, which is to judge and put people in different categories. Oh, he's learned, he's not learned, he's a great singer, he's not a great singer, so we naturally put that. And we saw the example of even a salt can look like a sugar, even a jackfruit looks scary, but it is nice, soft, and sweeter inside, right? So the whole idea is not to judge the devotees, because it can be very deceptive. We can judge somebody to be ordinary, they can turn out to be extraordinary, and vice versa as well. So the default is, if you treat everybody equally, when in this example 5.18, Brahmin, a cow, and an elephant, and a dog and a dog eat. If you keep everybody, the default is to treat everybody equally with respect, not everybody as the lowest person in that, but treat everybody as the highest person in that. Then we won't be committing any offense. Again, it comes from practice, by repeated hearing. Then we will go from here to here to here, and we can stay there at a particular time when we eventually internalize that. So we are all in this journey, right? Nobody can say perfectly that we are all perfect. So we are in this journey, and that's why we have these scriptures. We learn from these scriptures, we hear from it periodically, and then we internalize that little by little, and we change. Even if we change 1%, tomorrow, and then gradually we can change, and then there is a significant change in our life.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Wonderful. Thank you for your answers. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. We can take maybe one or two more questions if anyone has before we conclude. So, anyone has any questions?
So, as anybody is thinking, devotees are thinking, until we change our thinking, we will always recycle our experiences. Remember, so that's a takeaway for us today. Until we change our thinking, we will recycle our experiences. So we need to change our thinking by hearing and reading about pastimes like this. There are many more. We just covered X number of pastimes relevant to this subject, but we keep hearing this again and again, so that we are changing our thinking, so we don't recycle our experiences by categorizing people into different buckets.
Yes. So I think looks like no more questions. So I think we conclude this session, and it was very nice hearing you, Prabhuji. As always, it was very nice session. Like you covered, I think, all the three scriptures: Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and even Chaitanya Bhagavat, with all the like examples and pastimes. So thank you once again.